Kevin Cortez, the superintendent, Dr. Elms, the Desert Junior Senior High School principal, Mr. Sierks, the Branch Elementary School principal, and Mr. Walker, the Chief Business Officer. I'm also joined on stage by the MSG Group Superintendent, Chief Thompson, who will be handling the questions for us today. So please get your questions in. Right now you can get them through Facebook or through the telephone number that was listed on the Facebook ad that went out. For right now, I will turn it over to Mr. Cortez for opening comments. Sir?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, and thanks again for hosting this. It is found to be a very valuable resource for families, and we're grateful to do it. For those that aren't aware, we are also doing weekly updates for parents every Friday. We post those Friday evening, and we put out a parent survey so that you can give your feedback to us, positive or things that you feel that we could do better. I'd like to publicly thank those that have been turning them in. Last week for the first time, and I mentioned this in our last Friday update, we had somebody, and it was here on the base side, so it's somebody that's probably watching right now, who took the time to mention specifically what their children's perspective was, and that was very helpful. So we'll probably keep the children's comments filtering through you. We'd like it to come through the parents themselves directly. Every day the teachers are talking with the students, so they have a way to have a voice. But we specifically at the district level would like to hear from the parents, and if we're going to hear from the students, we'd like to hear from them through you, and so that you can make sure that you're filtering and ensuring that what is being said actually speaks to the family as well. So thank you for doing that. I'm grateful for those from the district that are here tonight. Mr. Tan, who is usually with us and is on our Friday evenings, wasn't feeling well. It's not a COVID-related thing. We think we ate some bad food. So I asked him to just go ahead and stay home, but we'd like to wish him well. He wishes that he could be here this evening. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our two site principals to talk a little bit about each site, and then turn it over to Mr. Walker to talk about a few things he might have on his mind. We'll wait for questions to come in, and at the end, I'll have a few words. So how about Mr. Sierks, if we start with you, and then we'll go to Dr. Elms.
All right. I would just like to thank everybody for all of your support and your patience as we work out all the kinks and we're getting things figured out. All the teachers are working very hard, and we know that you're working hard too, so we just really appreciate it. I also like to thank everyone for reaching out to me if you have any direct concerns, and I hope that we're addressing them. We have kids in classes, and they're learning, and I've really enjoyed watching the kids learn as I pop in and out of classrooms. So just once again, thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Great. I just want to say pretty much the same thing. The feedback we're getting from the parents has been really good, a lot of positive. There's been some feedbacks we need to work on. But the biggest thing is that everybody understands we're all in this together, and the patience has been really nice coming from everybody. Our teachers have been working really hard, trying to make it the best they can and make sure that students are learning. And we've set it up so we try to create it almost like it was a regular school day, except it's obviously not. You're online and on the computers. But it's really important, just everybody out there, if you have anything to say to the teachers, positive or just a couple concerns that have come up, email the teachers. They'll love to hear from you, and they have a lot of time to work on that as well, and then also let us know. So we appreciate the feedback, and we do address it as soon as we can. Everything's just moving along. We got some grades coming up pretty soon. Progress reports be coming out and being posted next week, so you'll have information about that on the weekly summary on Friday nights. So again, if you're not hearing anything from us, from the school, and especially on the weekly summaries, please make sure you call the office, find out why. Make sure we have update emails and everything so we can contact you. So other than that, we're just moving right along.
Okay, I'll be brief today. I wanted to touch on just a few things. The first, thank you for everyone. Last week we did a big password change to Google. It was absolutely something we try to avoid doing whenever possible throughout the year, and even more exciting and interesting when we are distance learning. It's no longer just going to your kid's teacher, or having the teacher give it to them in the morning. So thank you. It helped to make the students and the learning environments more secure. Again, it's not something we want to do, but we're all learning, we're all adjusting. I want to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Elms mentioned. I think we're reaching the point now where we're not just getting by. I don't ever directly pop into classrooms, but I see some in the classrooms anyways. We have a lot of teachers who have figured out the groove, a lot of families that have figured it out. I think we're starting to move from just the basic understanding to starting to enhance and get better. So I want to thank everyone. We're moving beyond that first phase of just getting by. It's normal. Anyone anyone's learned an instrument or any of that knows there's that first phase where, one of the great examples, my sister who tried to learn the violin, and the noises that came from the room, we thought some poor animal was being tortured. But over time, it goes from those horrible, horrible sounds to being more and more like music. And we're starting to get to that point now where we're no longer torturing the strings. We're starting to make a little bit of music. Some classrooms are further along than others, and that's just natural life. Different teachers, different students, different curriculum. Some things tend more. If you're in coding and programming, you're probably already really comfortable with computers. If you're doing math is a little bit harder. I know, I was a math major at one point, and I still don't know how you do some of the equations when you're doing math and trying to write it into a document electronically. It's rough, but everyone's getting there. We're moving on. I also want to touch base on food service. We are serving meals. So here on base, we're serving out at Desert. Please come by. The more people that come to get school meals, it's going to allow us to have more variety. That's one of the complaints in the spring and even now is just parents want some more variety. We would love to be able to provide more variety, but when it's 10 people throughout a week that come and get meals, we can't bring a lot of variety. They're always going to be a healthy meal, but we'd love to bring more variety. So the more people that come and get those meals for your kids, the more we can offer. We're also serving out at North Edwards, where the district office is. We're serving at West Boron, and we're serving at Boron High School. So if you happen to live in one of those communities, you don't live here on base, you're welcome to go by those sites as well. Any site can serve any student. So you don't have to go to the school where your student normally goes to. Last, I want to touch on the surveys as well. First, thank you very much. It was an interesting experiment to start to see how much feedback we get. And we have gotten great feedback, and it's very appreciated. We try to address as much as we can in our weekly Friday update videos. Some of the more specific stuff gets referred to the principals, so they can reach out to you directly. We are not necessarily going to talk about your student on the video. I think generally most people appreciate that. Nobody wants to have a conversation about Johnny to the entire world. But please keep giving that feedback. We like it. Positive's great. We love hearing, so-and-so's doing a good job, or thank you for this. And other things where, hey, we're struggling with this, we're struggling with that. Feel free to put that in there. We've had some families reach out saying we're struggling with internet, and we're working with those families as well. We don't necessarily want to become your household IT, but we're happy to have some people reach out and try to give you some tips or tricks to, if you're struggling, you have internet, but it's not quite doing it. With that, I don't know if we have any questions yet.
I have one question. How can we ensure young children at the Annex attend class and complete their assigned homework during the day?
Actually, I think that's a question for the MSG, or actually the School Age Center, which unfortunately they're going through an inspection this week and we're unable to make this town hall. But this is more of a parent-student responsibility. The workers at the school age program can help guide the student to sit down and log in, but they cannot force them to do the work. Furthermore, they're not teachers in the aspect of able to take over the class and teach the class that is supposed to be going on. So I guess do what you can with your child, bribe them or whatever it takes to get them to sit down and do the work. The School Age Center workers are doing the best that they can to try to get Johnny or Susie to sit down at the computer and do their work. But for the most part, if the kid says, Yeah, I know I'm supposed to log in here and do this work, but I'd rather go play with Billy Bob than, they're going to allow them to go play with Billy Bob.
Got that, sir. That's the only question we have at the moment.
Okay. I wrote down a few questions. So I'm sure everybody's wanting to know what are the chances of, and what does it look like for us going back to school in person? I know we're going to do this, and you set the date to October 9th, but what is it looking like? Because we're getting pretty close to October 9th now. What is it looking like?
Great question. And we're starting to see more and more of that, even from staff wanting to know what is it going to look like. Without having the great crystal ball that I wish that I owned that could tell us, what we anticipate is every fall we see the uptick in flu cases. That is absolutely natural. As I speak with, there's 42 different school districts, 42, 43 in Kern County. And I meet with them at least weekly. We sit down and we have a meeting and we have conversations about where we're at and where we're looking to go. I don't know of any school district right now that is talking about coming back, especially in what we would consider a traditional setting. Now, our next steps are going to be at some point a hybrid. I think what's going to need to happen first is we take a look at cold and flu season and see exactly the upticks. We'll also look at neighboring districts who may come back before us and see what happens. How we're going to bring people back might help explain this answer the best, though. We're going to go at it in a tiered fashion. So the first group of people, student-wise, that will come back onto the campus will be students that need to be tested. So we have students who are designated as English language learners. There's not a lot of them, but there are some. In fact, my wife is the person that administers all of those tests. That group of people, and also special education students that require testing, that has to be done in person. That can be speech, or it can be a number of cognitive disabilities that they may have. They need to come in and do direct testing. So tomorrow, we'll walk around and do our final inspection of on-site. We'll have one spot at Desert High School. We'll have another at the high school in Boron. And that will be phase one, where there is a small percentage of students of the school district. It's a single-digit percentage that will begin to come on and meet singularly with a teacher using social distance guidelines that are given to us by the county health office. And we'll start that. Phase two would be starting to bring back severe special education students, those that are the most severe. Again, there is a handful of them in the district. It's about 12 students. And next would be the rest of the special education students, and then kindergarten, first grade, perhaps second grade. That honestly is probably about step 36, and we're on step 5 right now. And so to talk about exactly what date, right now, if I had to pin it down and tell you where we're going to be October 10th, we're going to be exactly where we're at right now. The wild card is how many of those tier 1, tier 2 groups are going to be actually coming in and attending classes at school. But if you have a child who is in general education and is in 4th grade, today I couldn't tell you that on October 10th they're going to be back at school with their teacher. I don't see that happening. What I see is an uptick of flu cases again, and some more guidance that's going to come down from the county health office and from the governor that talks about being very careful and mindful of bringing students back. With that in mind, we have in place all of the PPE that is necessary to have students come back. We have procedures written for how students will ingress and egress from each school site. We have thermometers that can take temperatures of every child and every adult, every individual that come back and forth on and off the campus every day. We have all of that in place. We then have to take a look at what are the guidelines. So I can tell you right now from the governor's office what they've said is they've set it at 16. It's 14 students, 2 adults, and they call that a cohort. Well, there's no classroom that is only that size. So you would then have to take each class and break it into 2 different groups. You have an A group and a B group. They would come on alternating days. If I am the teacher, I can be assigned to do 2 different cohorts. So I can have all of the students in my class. I just can't see them all at the same time. So right now, the short answer is I'm not sure when. We'll have to track what flu looks like. We'll also have to track how does it go once we start to bring back small groups of people. We know that other districts have, and we see this at the college and university level, they're probably our great big first test. More colleges and universities have had people come together. COVID doesn't really, it is not a respecter of income or language or geography. It comes and affects people as soon as they start to gather together. So for us, the most important thing is to make sure that when we gather students together, that we follow the guidelines we're given, first and foremost. And second, do we have the PPE in place and the procedures to ensure that even in those small cohorts, they can stay safe. But what I can control at school is school behavior. What I can never control is at-home behavior. And that is probably the thing that concerns me the most, is once I start to bring everyone back, I'm kind of the hub of a wheel, and each spoke is a family, and we all meet together in this one spot. I have families that range from masks on all the time, constant hand washing, to the other far extreme, which would be perhaps saying this is a hoax, or I'm not going to change my behaviors because of this. I don't know your personal viewpoints on this at home. I just know that once your kids start coming back, they're going to start intermingling with one another. Now, I can hold them to a standard once they arrive at the building, but where they have been and where they're going to go after school is just a variable that I'll never be able to answer to. So the best I can tell you is as soon as we can, we're going to have them come back, because we know that the best place for kids is to be in a classroom setting with their teacher, and following guidelines. And we're going to start with those smaller groups of people and see how that goes, and then we'll build out from there.
So we're not. I do have a few questions now. So,
Okay.
but we're not looking at, say, right after the new year. We're not looking at a certain mark that we think that we won't be able to meet beforehand.
There's not a
Or
specific
saying
date.
something to the effect of, well, once vaccines come out, then. We're not going that. We're not getting any specifics like
We're
that.
not getting into any specifics like that, no.
And
That
if I
makes
can
sense.
just add real quick. So we some of our comments that we've gotten back, people kind of think we're being dodgy. And to be honest, we are a little bit, because the guidance we get changes so dramatically so fast. We sometimes come here, we say, all right, we're going to do this. The next day it's changed, and we have to change because that's the law. And then people come and say, you told us it was going to be this, and now you're doing something different. And our answer is, well, yes, we're sorry. One example is, so the small group guidance. And I don't like to pick on the state too often, but this is just one of those issues where it doesn't necessarily make sense. So the initial guidance was you could come back for small groups with this cohort. However, you could not, for that cohort, do actual instruction. So if you had a student that, say, had to get an assessment and needed some additional support, they could come in the morning and get assessments. Once they were done, you would look at the kid and say, all right, go home. It's time to teach. They would go home, and then you could teach them. And then after you're done, say, okay, come back. We can now help you with the teaching today. And they could come in for support. At some point, how do you even make sense with that? How is that logical? How do you work with that? Maybe you don't need the additional support if they could just be in class learning. And so we could have, in some districts, started to issue guidance or plans based on that. And within a day, the state recognized that plan really didn't make sense and started changing it to now the most current iteration. So we do absolutely apologize if we say we think we're going to do this or we plan to do this and it changes. We don't like changing either. It's work. Humanity as a whole does not like change. And for us, once we start building a plan, we don't really enjoy changing it. We absolutely will if we must or the law changes, but please understand and just, we ask for forgiveness that we make plans, we make decisions, and very often we're told you're going to go left, and we get to the left turn, and the state goes, we don't know why you're here, you're going right. And that's all we can do. And we will continue to do it. We're going to follow the laws. We're going to do everything we can to make sure students are safe. But we are going to make sudden lane changes sometimes. And I can't promise that more aren't coming. We're going to absolutely do the best to try and make decisions once we know it's for sure. And do our absolute best to communicate those decisions once we know.
It's a real interesting place. So to kind of jump on that and give an example that might help with families. My wife, again, I explained, she does the testing for those that are English learners. She, as you can imagine, when I go home at night, all we talk about is Muroc. All of my kids come to school. My wife works for the district. I work for the district. We kind of have a rule that after 9 o'clock, Muroc ends. It can't, there comes a certain point, you've got to change the subject. She and I were talking about how do I meet with kids? What are the guidelines? And I told her, you need to reach out to the county health office. We have been told as superintendents, have your people that do this reach out to the county health office for specific guidance. Well, quite honestly, the county health office up until now did things such as they would put the ratings on a restaurant. That's how you get an A rating or a B rating. That's what they do. For school districts, they would come out to our cafeterias or they come out to the snack shack at the football field and they'd tell us the cheesy sauce is heated up to the right temperature or not, or something like that. So when she reached out to the county health office and said, all right, I need to meet with a student who's an English language learner. I'm supposed to administer 5 different exams. I need to know how close I can get to them and what are the rules and regulations for them using a Chromebook or a writing utensil to do that test. And they said, we have no idea what you're talking about. We don't work with schools. We look at cafeterias, but we don't do that. And it took several iterations until she finally reached someone who said, actually, now we do work with schools in a different way. So the rules that we are receiving as a school district, you would think, are written by a group of educators only, or people that are in this field. We are just a part of the puzzle. There's a lot of different people. So a rule will come out, a regulation comes out, and the next day it changes because someone will say, Trevor's example was perfect, that isn't going to work. How is it that I can have a student come in and I can give them a test, and but I'm not allowed to teach them? So I can give a test, then I have to say, go home, and I'm going to get on the computer again, I'm going to teach you. Those of you that didn't get it and need extra support, you can get back on a school bus, or your parents can bring you back to the school, and I can work with you to support you in that way, and then you have to go home so I can teach you again. So they said, well, you're right, that doesn't make sense. Let's not do that. The initial guidance on how many people could be in a room, at first it said a cohort was a group of students and the adults, and that could not change. And somebody brought up, most classrooms are made up of more than 14 students. So do we either hire twice the amount of teachers with no budget to do that, or can the teacher work with more than one group of 14 students? So a few days later it was, you know what, the teacher can do that. That's fine to do. Then someone brought up, some of these students are so severe that some students have a specific adult that is assigned to them. It's called a special circumstance instructional aid. We hire a lot of them. They work one-on-one with the child. Our most needy students, if you walk into that classroom, will have 8 students and 6 adults. So in this cohort of 14, is that now 14? Because it's more than 2 adults, can we get some clarification? So a couple of days later, clarification came out that said, you know what, as long as it doesn't exceed 14, you can mix and match the adults, that's fine. So when someone asks us, what does it look like tomorrow? I have a really hard time answering that question because I'm waiting on a lot of other people whose pay grade is higher than mine to tell me what it's going to look like. We feel confident that what we're doing right now, although is not ideal for families, it's not what we ever went to school to go and do, every day it's working more and more, and at least it's working. And we've had a number of parents that have written us because the majority of you that are listening, if you're from the Edwards side, you make up 75% of our school district. approximately. Of that 75%, the majority of you do not live on base. You live in a different community and you bring your children to us. You could use your home school. You live in Roseman, you live in Lancaster, Palmdale, Quartz Hill, Tehachapi, Mojave, California City, wherever it is, but you choose to bring your children to us. And some of you have been very kind to compare us to what your neighbors are telling you our neighboring districts are doing. I'm not going to get in the middle of that. I will say thank you for the compliments. I will say I know that our heart and our intention is to do great. We feel that every day we do better, and we recognize that we can do even better. And we're going to continue on this path because it's safe for you and it's safe for children. But as soon as we feel confident that, one, the state gives us a plan that we can count on, that we can come to you and say, this is going to work not just for today, but will work for tomorrow and is going to work for a month from now. And we feel that it is feasible for us, that's something that you can actually do, then we're going to get your kids back so they can start meeting with teachers in a more traditional setting. For those that are going to ask me about sports, if that's going to come up, let me tell you, that's a back burner. Out of everything right now, unfortunately, sports is something that's probably in the field of education, one of the things that's more towards the back, because we're more concerned about getting kids in to make sure they understand reading, writing, and arithmetic. Understanding there's always the case where there's a child, and I know one personally, I know him really, really well. He lost his scholarship. He was a senior last year. He obtained a scholarship for track and field, and now his college isn't doing it, so he's lost his scholarship. We recognize those are real scenarios. They're fewer and far between than most students, but sports is not governed by Muroc. We don't decide that. That is done by CIF. That is a California decision made by a group. We are in a sports league, and as a league, we can talk about what does our league look like, but we are governed by a group of people, again, that are bigger than us. We don't get to make those decisions. We can decide things like, do we allow you to bring in Doritos to our gymnasium? That's what we get to decide. But we don't get to decide if a game is going to happen in that gymnasium. That is made by the league, which is made by the California Interscholastic Federation, or CIF. So anyway, I spoke way too much to that, but I know there's a lot of questions to it, and so I'm trying to speak to maybe what some people are thinking but aren't necessarily asking. So, Chief, what other questions do we have?
Okay, next, specifically for the high school, and then I got another generic question along the same lines, is why am I being given so much homework after being in school for 8 hours a day? And another separate question from someone else was, what's with the extreme amount of homework?
Well, first of all, if you think you have an extreme amount of homework, you need to let me know or let the teachers know. Like I said, we try to create the school just as if you were in person. If you were in person in the classroom all day from 7:50 to 3 o'clock, you would have homework as well. The amount of time you're actually in a classroom digitally is less than what we would be in person. So it's not 8 hours a day. It may seem like 8 hours. I know it is when I'm there joining the classrooms as well. But you have a class that's 50 minutes, and the 50 minutes the teachers try to create it as much as they would in person. So sometimes you'd have more instruction going on, direct instruction. There'd be some days where you would have some instruction and then maybe some independent work, and then maybe even some group projects. I know we have teachers doing speech and debates. But if you ever feel like there's too much work, again, first place is contact the teacher or even let me know if you think it's too much work, and we'll look into it.
Excellent answer. I have 2 seniors that are struggling with some subjects, and they are using school Chromebooks. Is there a tutoring site that can access the school laptops, or they can access on the school laptops?
Many of the teachers, again, reach out to the teachers again. They have their own office hours or time that they're going to be helping tutor or give any help to the students. As far as direct tutoring, we don't have anything after school specifically right now. The biggest thing is math. I did send something out to all the parents through the counties called Do the Math. It's a flyer. If you didn't see it the last couple of weeks, email me. I'll make sure I can send it to you. And so there's also math tutoring available through the county as well.
Yeah, let me jump on that too real quick, Chief. Tutor.com is another place that you can jump on, and then Khan Academy online. We are also searching for tutors to help our kids. In fact, we have a tutor. Our STEM coordinator has so graciously volunteered her time to tutor in math, Miss Halita Van Hoy. And we're looking for a place right now for her to actually do the tutoring, and students could show up to do that. And she can tutor maths ranging from elementary school all the way through high school, including geometry, trigonometry, calculus, all of it. So we're working that out, trying to figure out a place for her to give her time and for students to show up while we're waiting for the school also to because that was another question I had about the tutoring program.
Yeah.
That we talked about at the first town hall.
So let me talk about the tutoring. I first talked about the town hall, and then we'll talk specifically about what you just mentioned. I was erroneously told by a third-party company that they would provide tutoring for us from 6th through 12th grade.
Allow me to interject. Sales rep.
Sales rep. They have heard from me. They know how I feel about that. And I sincerely apologize to everyone. I thought I was crazy, to be honest. I thought, well, maybe I just totally misheard them. But Mr. Walker was there, Mr. Tan was there, and heard that as well. And we were just lied to by a salesperson. I thought it was actually a pretty brilliant idea on their part as a business idea. We do know that our teachers do reach out and meet with people quite a bit. When it comes to anybody from your team that's looking for a place, we can talk because I have space, and I'm looking at Trevor. We're kind of doing the eye dance here. I bet you we can give you a place for that to occur, and we could take on the part of making sure that it's clean and that it's prepared for you, and that's a great thing for us to partner on. And one thing that we definitely struggle with is we don't have in evening tutors. We have during the day teachers. So if Edwards has a place but you need a location, I bet you I can give you a location and even keep it clean for you and keep it sterile and appropriate, and we can make that work together.
Perfect.
Many families affiliated with Branch or Desert do not qualify for Wi-Fi assistance. We make too much money, go figure. However, would it be possible to have hotspots available for all students, at least one per home?
I'll let Trevor talk to this one.
We would love that to be able to provide that. The simple reality is, for those that have been around or happen to listen to our board meetings where we talk about finance, schools are already not funded sufficiently for what we do. We would love to be able to go out and provide hotspots. The reality, and I don't know how many of you have looked at hotspots, hotspots are expensive. And not only are they expensive, but they're expensive every month. It's just something we feasibly cannot do. What the district did, which I think is beyond what even some other districts did, surprisingly, we really looked at need. And one of the factors is, do you qualify for free and reduced? From research, from what some of the county studies that were done and other national studies, they showed that generally the households that struggle with internet are the same households that generally qualify for free and reduced. So I would love to. I would love to offer more. But for us as a district, we are already spending resources we really don't have to try and just get out as much as we can. We've purchased a lot of Chromebooks. We're getting ready to start rolling out new generation Chromebooks for those that have, I know some families have mentioned they have Chromebooks that are kind of old or broken down. So for that alone was a huge expense. We are providing quite a number of modems, wired cable modems out to families as well. We're covering that cost. As I've mentioned in some town halls, and I'll mention here, if you're really struggling at home and you already have internet, again, we can't promise to be your household IT, but we're happy to try and help troubleshoot. I'll volunteer Mr. Sirks as well. He likes tinkering with technology a bit as well. we can try and help you. We've had a number of families, and I'll go a little bit technical, who have reached out, and they've been able to solve their issues. Now they have internet home, but we've been able to solve some of the issues where they have multiple students or things not connecting by just some basic IT troubleshooting. It comes down to some settings on the routers or reaching out. One of the things we've encountered a lot, telecom companies are notorious for not upgrading your equipment at your house. And so some people have a modem that's 6-7 years old. Well, that 6-7-year-old modem might be the reason that you're only getting a 10 meg connection when you're paying or getting a 200 meg connection. So again, reach out individually, and we'll try to help as much as we can. We'll try and give you some guidance. We can, try and push our weight around with Spectrum if needed. But when it comes to actually providing a hotspot for every student, that's just not something we can do. I'm sorry. I really wish it was an option for us.
That makes good sense. We're going to shift gears a little bit and go back to the MSG, I believe, for an answer that we may have to owe back later on the website. In regards to possible help with school-age children going to childcare, there is currently only one job hiring announcement for a youth program education support assistant to assist with virtual learning. Is it possible to up that authorization to 2 or more people and turn the school-age program into a more structured after-school program even after COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question. There should have been 3 of those positions advertised. So if there's only one, chances are the other 2 have been taken and those people are being onboarded. I need to get an update from our school-age program leads to find out where that stands, and so we will have to owe that answer back to them. But yeah, that's a great question.
Cool. And we'll also address the second part of that question as well in that answer, because I think it'll be a little bit longer of an answer and a little bit more technical than we can cover right now, without the FSS folks here. When the kids return, what are the protocols if a student or teacher is tested positive for COVID?
So right now, the way that would work is if a teacher or student became positive, they would be part of that cohort, that group of individuals, and that entire cohort will be sent home to quarantine for 14 days, and we'd see where we're at. I'm going to give you what the latest and greatest I heard on this was, and I could be incorrect, but the last time that I looked at this, and since we're distance learning, I'm not tracking it every day. I'm waiting for real guidance to come because I'm kind of tired of tracking things that continually change. But it was getting to the point, the last time I looked, it was if you had one cohort, that cohort went home. If you had 2 cohorts in one school, the entire school would go home. If you had 25% of your schools in your school district go home, your entire school district would go home. Well, right now, we operate 4 schools. So that would mean if 2 schools at Branch Elementary School, if it's one family, let's say, and they had a 1st grader and a 4th grader, and they came to school and they tested positive, those 2 children from that one household could shut the district down and send us all home for a period of 14 days. So that might have slightly changed since then, but that was the latest and greatest, and you can see why we would be concerned.
And definitely, it's a little bit early to answer a question.
It really is. Really is. But I can tell you this: what we don't do is we don't say, "Oh, you weren't feeling well. Well, go ahead and go home." We also have a responsibility to do contact tracing as well. Right. So that's a whole nother part built in where we have to monitor everywhere you go. So when we do come back, you'll also see staggered lunches, staggered recesses. We will do everything in our power to keep cohorts away from one another in order to minimize contact tracing as well.
Makes good sense. Good proactiveness too.
We just don't know how we're going to do it, Chief.
Makes sense.
I gotta be honest, it's going to be really hard.
Yep, but it's one of those things at least we have the question for that we can answer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What can be done to ensure instruction is intentional and meaningful instead of just busy work?
Principals, do you want to speak to that first? And then I've got a few words I'd like to say to it.
Well, we trust that our teachers are professionals and that they're not just doing busy work. If you feel that something is busy work, like we've said before, please first reach out to the teacher and share your concerns, and then also share them with me. I'd be happy to help you with those, as well as Dr. Elms. Please reach out to us and share what you feel is going on.
Yeah, that's the same thing, but as Mr. Sirks and I, we jump into the classrooms too, and we're looking and observing what's being taught and what work's being done. So if we see something that looks busy, we'll say something and address it at that time, which is why it's important. If you see something, and I mean, you can email us the minute you see it. I mean, I know a lot of parents may be home and seeing what's going on in the classroom, which is a little different than what being in live. So if you see something, shoot me an email. I'll pop right into that classroom right away and see what I'm doing, and we're all seeing the same thing. So just let us know if you think it's busy work, and we'll address it if it comes up.
So we'll see. We'll see how I can channel Mr. Cordes here. There's a couple things I want to touch on that. First is, please, first and foremost, reach out to your teacher. I think step one is, if you're really concerned, there's a lot of busy work, a lot of that, have the conversation with the teacher. You might just solve it right there. Second step, definitely reach out to your principals. One thing I do want everyone to keep in mind is we are doing instruction. We are teaching students. There's two ways to go about it. One is everything's really busy work. And so we're not really pushing, we're not really trying to enhance instruction, we're just trying to do the bare minimum. We could do that as a district. However, we want students to learn. We want this to be a rigorous, real program. So there is going to be work. For us to reduce it, make it the bare minimum, we're really wasting everyone's time at that point. Because now the kids aren't really getting what the learning they need. They're not getting the rigor. They're not getting the structure. It is absolutely a little bit more difficult. Your kids are at home. They're doing that. But we're trying to make sure that time spent is worth something. So our teachers are absolutely going to do instruction. We're going to try and make sure that all the instruction, all the homework, all that's relevant, important, and instructional. But it is going to be work. And some stuff might seem tedious. I'm an accountant. History and I don't get along. I get it. And all of history seems like busy work to me. I don't know why. I don't remember dates and names. I understand. But we want to make sure that we are spending your time and your students' time well and really getting good instruction. So we'll see if that...
You channeled it really well. So there's over 1,700 students. So let me just say that one parent's definition of busy work is not the next parent's definition of busy work. In any given crowd, I have people that are telling me, you're not giving me enough work, and I have some people telling me you're giving me way too much work. We're moving too fast. We're moving too slow. We should be back at school. We should never go back to school. So to Mr. Walker's point, at the end of the day, really our intent is to do what is best for you, and most importantly, what's best for your child. So reach directly out to the teacher, and if you feel that something is amiss in any way, you start there. Make a phone call and let them know, this is what I need, this is what I wish that I was seeing more of or less of. And I don't know of anyone off the top of my head that should be so disrespectful, so rude, so unengaged and uncaring that they would just blow you off completely. Now, at the end of the conversation, you may still not see things eye to eye, and if that's the case, then please speak to the principal and let them know that, okay, I tried that one, and we're still not really seeing eye to eye on this. Please help me even further, help me to understand, or help advocate for me. And if all else fails beyond that, again, 760-250-3210. So 250, and then count down like you're launching a rocket, 3210. Shoot me a text first. Usually works really well because too many people call me now, and they're salespeople, and they're wanting me to, get a new something new on a car I don't even own anymore. So what I find works really well is just feel free to text me. Give me your name and say, please give me a call. I'm happy to give you a ring. And the first thing I'm going to ask you is, did you talk to Mrs. Schwartz? And after that, did you talk to the principal? And if you say no to me, I'm going to be very kind and loving, but I'm going to point you back in that direction unless you have a real special case. But please start there, and we can work through. I've never found us to not be able to work through things. It's very, very rarely that we ever find ourselves in a spot where we just do not see eye to eye. And we can fix darn near anything.
Excellent. I have a question that's come in a couple different forms.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, but it makes good sense. Has it been looked into, or in what form are we concerned about the children having too much screen time? Too much time in front of an actual screen itself, because we know that can be, bad for development and things of that nature. So the question really boils down to, has any studies been done? And what do we think about, and how do we counteract too much screen time, given the situation we're in?
We have not done any direct studies of what constitutes too much screen time. Again, if you feel like your child's spending too much time, reach out directly to your teacher. I have heard from some parents some things like, when the class is over, the teacher's done teaching and they're supposed to be working independently, the teacher is making my child stay logged on and working on. I don't know if that means staring at the screen or logged on and now they've moved to paper and pencil, or they're working on something. I would say the short answer to this, Chief, is I think for the next 2 generations there are going to be educational specialists, psychologists, economic professionals that will do their dissertations on the effects of COVID-19 on society. But as far as direct studies of how much time is too much screen time, we haven't done a direct test on that. Instructional minutes have been decreased by the state of California right out of the chute. In our school district, we used to have, between kindergarten and 12th grade, we used to carry a discrepancy of just about an hour. It really was only the difference. If you looked at what California allowed, it was about 2.5 hours. But we kept our kindergartners around for a full day. Most people came to us and said, why aren't you staying in school longer, let alone shorter? So the discrepancy now between those grade spans is only 1 hour. But everybody's is smaller. So there is fewer time required by teachers to teach. And we do try to watch how much time that kids are on the screen, that's for sure. But as we've seen in different questions, we've got some kids that aren't logging on at all, and we're having trouble getting them to log on. We've got other kids where parents feel like they're on too much. So again, it's a very interesting time where finding that sweet middle ground is more appropriate for parents to reach out to their teachers and say, I think my kid's on too much.
And just a real quick add on to that, we have looked into this a little bit. What I have found is pretty easy. Whichever side you're on, if you think your child is having too much or too little, if you Google that, you will find studies for that. At the moment, there's no clear guidance from any let's say, more reputable source, really saying that there is or isn't a certain amount of time. There's been studies that say 20 minutes of time on your device is too much, and studies that basically say you can be on all day. We'll do our best to limit it, but again, we'll do our best to also make sure we're providing rigorous instruction.
I'm going to be a real smart aleck, Chief. Ready? Now, if some students, maybe 3 of them in my household, were to offset some of their Fortnite time with time that they've been spending in school and maybe read a book instead or go outside and play, they'll probably be okay. Now, I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but I am going to speak of the 3 Cordis kids that are still at home, because the 4th one is at college now, and I know he's got a lot of time on a screen. But my 3, I know, could probably cut down their screen time significantly if they cut that part out.
Yeah, and I think those studies that you're mentioning goes back to that type of lifestyle where they're saying, hey, you're doing this all day long, and then you're on YouTube, and then you're surfing the web, and then you're playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so did get a question on Facebook that said, if the children can go to the Annex and then go to child and youth programs, why can't they go to school?
Yeah,
Because
that's a great
California?
question. I think that's regulated by California, and on base, we just have a different rule set that we can go by. Again, they're not going for class, but and those are, hate to say it, but those are paying customers that are paying for their kids to go to a basically a place for care, but that is not where they're going to get educated. And we don't control that part. That is by the state of California. So I'll have to defer that answer to the state of California.
Yeah, we
Copy.
are.
Kind of figured that's where we headed with that.
That's exactly right. We are employees of the state. It's the same question as we can't all go to school together, but we all see each other at Costco. Or maybe we see each other at the commissary. We see each other around town. But we work for the state of California, and so those that we work for have said, thou shalt not, and so we are not.
And there's a difference in option too, right? Like Colonel Harris was saying, they're paying customers who
That's
are saying,
exactly
I'm
right.
willing to take this risk, I'm willing to assume this risk, and I'm willing to trust that you have the right safety measures in place, and this is acceptable risk to me. Whereas if the state of California said, then it forces the parents into a you will
That's right.
situation. So that makes good sense. I believe I know the answer to this, and you guys can refer back to a couple of your other answers, but it's phrased differently. It's a little bit different situation, but I think the answer will come the same of talk to the teacher first and then elevate. But my student is consistently being let out 30 minutes early from class, no out-of-class work, no updates to portal for grades to check on anything, physics and game design, for example. I don't even know how to help him fill that time in a productive way if the teacher is not giving work. And why couldn't I have that teacher? Go ahead.
Well, obviously that's a high school one. Again, reach out to the teacher. Since you were specific on the grades, I will also look into it for the teacher as well, because just make sure that they don't have work, because I know that those teachers, and there's work in those things that you need to do.
Especially those subjects, I'm sure.
Especially those subjects. I mean, if we were in person, sometimes they do give time to finish homework at the end of the class, and some students get done ahead of time. So that's the thing you really got to look at. Just reach out to their teacher, and I'll look into it too, make sure that there is work. But I'm pretty sure there's work they have to do, and there's projects they have to do.
And Chief, when I was a principal, I got to be honest, I don't want to overload my two excellent principals here, but I never minded when parents even blind copied me if they felt that was best. Just blind copy the principal or copy the principal and let them know. It's in today's age, it's very easy to track conversations that way.
Right.
And it gives us a heads up as well of things that are going on out there. And as a principal, when I would see 8 different parents emailing a very similar message to one individual, I could then see that I could see the common denominator, so to
Right.
speak.
And we're getting some specifics like that. So this one's for the elementary school. In regards to homework load, we have a 3rd grader who doesn't end up completing all the schoolwork until 5:30 or 6, and that's with help. There are 2 working parents in the home, and other parents have complained about the same thing. We have also talked to the teacher about this, and all we get is a thank you. What can be done about it?
Again, if you could please email me more specifics, I'd really appreciate that, so I could address it on a personal level with that family, and also I'll work together with the family and the teacher to in that, because we want students to learn, we want them to have work, but we don't want them to feel overwhelmed, we don't want them to be frustrated, we don't want them to not be sleeping at night because they have too much work. So please reach out to me.
Cool. Is it true that all students will have to get school Chromebooks, or is that just a rumor? That's a high school question.
We are moving towards that. One of the things that the district Chromebook allows is it allows a little more control over the screens, making sure that the students are all looking at the right web pages and that. So, for example, if a teacher is presenting a lesson, right now they don't necessarily have the ability to push out a lesson to the students. With these new purchases, we will have enough for every student. And we'll start moving towards having every student have a Chromebook. It allows a certain level of protection. We know that our Chromebooks are filtered, Right now, if you go on and you try and browse something questionable, it will stop you. And we've had some concerns from parents and staff that some of those things have come up into the Google Meets and into the classrooms because students are not on a filtered Chromebook. They're on their home computers, personal PC, what have you, and they're able to do a lot more. A lot of it's very innocuous. Fortnite seems to be a common hidden music track to some teaching. But it will allow that. So that is something we are moving towards. We still need to get all the Chromebooks before we can do that, but we will start moving towards that just as a way to really ensure that time is spent. Because one of the things that is coming up with a lot of this, I have so much work. With some of those, I think there is a question of making sure that the student, when they're in class, is doing the work. And they're not on Fortnite or something else while they're in their room doing school. And then in the evening, they say, I have so much homework, I can't keep up. When really, they're 5 levels further in Fortnite, and now they have to figure out their schoolwork. So it'll help prevent that.
We've invested in approximately 1,500 new Chromebooks. Some of those have come in. It's a process of getting those in processed as well, and then out to communities. A really bad analogy, but for parents to understand the importance of this, imagine if a teacher walked into a classroom and every student had a cardboard little wall around them, and they're in the room physically, but the teacher can't see what they're doing. They're blocked off. Removing all of those pieces of cardboard so that the teacher can actually look across the classroom and see every student and know what they're doing. That's what allowing our Chromebooks to do does for us. When we give them our Chromebook, the teacher is able to actually see directly what each one of their students is doing. And to us, that's a control issue, and it's a safety issue. You send your children to us, and you expect us to keep them safe, and we accept that responsibility. We totally agree with that. And there's going to be some rules, some regulations, some uncomfortability for some, perhaps, but that's the way that goes. And it's always been that way. There are certain rules that you have to follow, and that's going to be a rule for us, is that we will be providing you the technology in the form of a Chromebook, and your child is going to be required to use that.
And just for clarification, if your student already has a Chromebook, that doesn't matter. You want them to use the school-issued Chromebook.
Yes, and some of them perhaps they can, but another thing about Chromebooks that we learned, and Trevor can speak way better to this than me, but Chromebooks have a shelf life, and it starts on the date that they're manufactured. And after approximately 5 years, although they're usable, don't get me wrong, it's not like they just shut off. There are certain things that we need them to do, such as state testing. There's certain safety features and update patches that we need them to be able to download that they no longer can do. They've run out of shelf life. There's a reason that Chromebooks cost less than laptops do, and that's a part of it. So we have purchased Chromebooks that are at the beginning of their life cycle so that we can maximize their time. And we have a variety of Chromebooks that are out in the hands of students that range from just about end of life to have a couple years left. And so we're going to phase out the older ones, obviously, and keep the newer ones online and functioning in the hands of students. And that's why we purchased 1,500, because we have enough of the others in order to keep ourselves going.
Copy that.
I have a couple good questions here from the same person. Why can the teacher during Zoom tell my daughter she can't have her coffee or water on her desk? And does the school have the authority to test my child for COVID without notifying me? Two separate questions, but good ones.
Two separate interesting questions.
Yes.
One, talk to your teacher and find out why they can't have coffee or a drink on their desk. Okay.
Well, as a technology person, I would ask that you don't put liquids next to school equipment.
That part makes sense.
We also ask our staff not to put liquids next to their school laptops either.
Yeah.
For some reason, electronics and liquids don't play nice. So just please be mindful. And for the parents, you don't really want that, because if your kid does knock coffee on the Chromebook and shorts it out, those aren't gifts. So there'll be an uncomfortable conversation. So please make sure you protect the district technology. I recommend you not doing that with home technology. If you have a keyboard connected to a PC, you spill a drink on it, it's not good. You have to replace the keyboard, but it doesn't destroy the entire computer. So that's just a basic, please take care of electronics ask. And I think that's probably a reasonable one. Keep your water over here, maybe a closed container. I hear they make special cups for pilots now that don't spill. Maybe one of you can give those to your kids to use.
And then I will just as assume take your child on vacation with me without telling you than to test them without telling you. So I don't even know. No, I'm not going to COVID-19 test any of your children without you knowing it. In fact, I don't know how I'm going to COVID-19 test any of your children.
Cool. This has not been covered. Somebody said they joined late. They were at work, so some of these
Sure.
we will have repeat questions when some folks are coming in from work. And if you are just joining us, please feel free to rewatch this as it's recorded, as it will be recorded and posted. But this is good. Why is there 36 to 40 kids in upper grades at Branch? Please hire more teachers. I've heard the same things about the teaching pool there and the lack of teachers. So I would venture to say this is going to be a popular question.
Very good. Mr. Searks, this is a elementary question.
All right. So to start off at Branch, every year we don't know the numbers off the top of our hands. We need to see the kids before we can go and hire teachers. I don't want to hire teachers and then have to tell them later on that I'm sorry, we don't have a position available for you. Those numbers have been consistent, and we are in the process of interviewing and bringing on more teachers for those high classes.
And we do follow, it's important to note, so we have both bargaining unit agreements and state requirements for class sizes, and we follow those. And they absolutely do increase as grades go up. So a TK classroom versus a sixth grade classroom is a very different loading. And that's what we follow. We would love to hire as many teachers as we could. We'd love to go down to a 10-to-1 class size ratio if we could. However, just as we talked about Wi-Fi, every teacher does cost money, and we only have a limited pool of resources. So if you want to help us with that, reach out to folks that help fund schools and remind them that schools need money. We would love to help and reduce class sizes, but again, we are constrained.
And we have had a little bit of turnover throughout the field of education. We have not been immune to this. In the field of education, a number of educators have decided that it's time to either retire or find a different field. As we have gaps, we fill those gaps. We're not immune to the processes that Edwards is as well. You know, there's legal processes we have to follow where we post internally, we post outside, we go through interviews, we do background checks. Even though we're in a remote setting, we are always extremely mindful of the adults that we put with children. We want to make sure that these are the right people. So the loading that you see now should level itself out. This is the start of every year. And in a couple of these cases, we have also heard from our staff that are currently teaching that they would rather pick them up than replace people that we have lost to a substitute and try to spool up a substitute. It's one thing to put them in a classroom with people. It's another to hand them the technology pieces.
Right.
So some of our teachers have said, in fact, all of them right now in these cases have said, we would all rather just take a couple of extra kids while we work through this than the chaos of having a different substitute every few days or something like that. So we're working through those.
Yeah, it's definitely different, unique times for everyone. And the
Absolutely.
churn that goes with that and the attrition that goes with that is a real thing.
Absolutely.
If Google Classroom says there are assignments completed and turned in, how are there missing assignments listed in Aries portal? I assume the systems are not connected. Where could the disconnect be?
You want me to talk about that one?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
going to be more of the Google Classroom at the moment.
Google Classroom and Aries is supposed to be connected as far as the grade books. Up until last week, Aries was not working and was not connecting. So Aries has fixed the problem. Now teachers are trying to catch up to get it into the Aries system. So it should be another week. Like I said, progress reports are due next week. Tomorrow's the cutoff date. So everything should be linked up by next week, so that shouldn't be an issue.
And Aries is a company that we use, for those that don't know. It is our student information data system. It's the thing that kind of controls everything. It keeps track of when you enroll, all the way to the time that you disenroll, all the attendance, grades, everything. There are a number of companies that do this. Aries is one of them. We have reached out all the way to the president of Aries, and we have helped them to find several errors that they have. I think everyone is learning in a post-COVID world that there were system breakdowns that no one ever knew were there. We are using them in ways that we've never used them before. So passwords were definitely one. The way that passwords were handed out by Aries were easy enough for some students, I'm not going to say which school, Desert High School, were able to figure out a way to hack them and to pretend like they were somebody else and then go in and crash classes. Now, thank goodness we didn't have problems like a school up in Bakersfield where a student was actually naked on camera or anything like that. We just had kids that were acting like kids. They were being silly. But it required a completely hard reset of every password. And that was an Aries problem. And we taught Aries they had a problem. And my brother-in-law is an assistant superintendent just up north. They started this week. I called him last week and said, look at your passwords, avoid the problem. And he was saying, I think everything's going to be great. And I said, so were we for the first 8 days. They're kids. Give them time. They're going to start acting like it. And so anyway, we've seen a number of things with Aries, things like that you should see over time, all these different companies catching up. Finding the holes that they had and plugging them and moving forward.
And indeed, and this happened several times, not just your school district and not just up north, but also in Palmdale School District. I know it's happened at least a few times there.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, due to high school being under construction, when Desert opens, are they going to go to parts of Branch or squeeze in the buildings that are still up at Desert?
They're going to go to Branch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to move the high school over to Branch. We've done so already. We've set the science. There's one classroom that's going to be a science lab classroom. That's been set up. There's a couple of tables that we're ordering. It's all we're short. Everything will slide there. We anticipate August of 2022 that Desert High School will be absolutely completed. The new Desert's done. We're going to be receiving the keys to Branch and Bailey here at the end of this calendar year. What does that mean for when kids come back? It would mean that we go to those buildings when that time comes, most likely. That's only step about 22. So, again, I don't know which step we're on exactly now.
Right.
We might be on step 8, Chief, but we're a little bit from it. But our intent is high school goes over to Branch, current Branch goes to its Branch Bailey. Then we have 5 schools, guys. That 25% rule may not hit us.
Just spread them out. Just
That's
keep
right.
spreading them out. I missed this question a little bit earlier. Thank you for the resend. Is the school working to get better internet on their end? For example, teachers are struggling with their internet with sessions freezing on their end, or being dropped from the class meeting altogether. Are there plans on improving the internet on your end? A teacher has complained daily the internet is bad on their end.
All right, so there's a lot of layers to that. It sounds like an easy answer. It is not, because it's technology. So first, I don't know. We need to check and see. Some of these teachers may or may not be at school.
Right.
So at school, we have reasonably quick internet. We have their gigabit connections. So at home, you're probably somewhere between 30 to 100 megs, maybe 200. Here, we're at 1,000 megs. So we have a good amount of bandwidth here. We are improving that. But right now, we have good internet. It's quite fast. It supports a lot of data. If they're here and they're having issues, please reach out to me. We have a lot of communication with teachers. If they're at home, I don't have a lot less control over what they do at home. So we talked a little bit about parents reaching out. We also have staff reaching out that are working with their internet providers as well. All staff have the ability to come here to the district and teach from their classrooms if they have issues with their technology at home. But we're working with them as well. So hopefully these are teachers that have already reached out. If not, we'll make sure to remind them to reach out to us so we can at least try and help them to resolve these dropped classes and things of that nature.
Excellent. I think we're about 5 questions out if we're getting our math right over here.
Okay.
So first, is it mandatory for students to have their cameras on? That's one.
Okay. It's not mandatory. We've been given a lot of flexibility on that. Teachers do like to have the cameras on to verify that students are working. If you have a problem with that, check with your teacher. The state has given us flexibility trying to work with families that may have connectivity issues. So again, reach out to your teacher if you happen to have a situation where you're concerned about that. If we want your camera on, it's only to verify that your kid is actually participating in the class. But we have been given some methods for kids to participate in other ways. Our intended way is for kids to be on camera with their peers. SB 98 was written. Senate Bill 98 says that students shall have access daily to their teacher and their peers. It's really hard to do that if you refuse to turn your camera on. That's the main way that you do it. So there could be other issues to that question. That's the short answer, but if there's anything more specific, please talk to the teacher first and then these guys.
And then does the 2-day makeup rule still apply?
It does.
Okay,
It does.
excellent. Okay, is COVID affecting the progress of the new high school?
No.
The construction of the new high school.
Really, it's not. We've had a recent, one of our contractors, for example, had an outbreak, but at their plant, it wasn't here. It was far away where they actually build things before they bring them. But by and large, we are on target to meet our target goal. So the short answer is no.
Excellent.
We're on target.
Surprising. Excellent.
Yep.
They would like an update on what's the plan for the children in IEP, elementary and high school both.
The plan is they are the second, again, they are the critical group to come back. Tier 1 are the kids that need testing. Tier 2 are the kids that are so severe they usually don't go into a traditional classroom setting. There's, again, only a handful of those in the district. And then it's those students to come back. A time frame on that is not until October, quite honestly, but that would be the time frame. And between now and then, our special ed teachers are doing everything they can, and the classified staff to work with them. They're the ones that are most on our mind, quite honestly. They are the kids that they've got to get back to school. We recognize that. We are just waiting to do it under the safest conditions and the ones that we feel are consistent, and the ones that the state will hold us to and we can rely upon.
Makes sense. For branch school, are you converting rooms for older kids, including disabled stalls?
Including disabled, I'm sorry, Chief?
Stalls.
All right, I assume this is talking about the transition to when high school moves
Yes,
over
sir.
there.
Yeah, if the older kids are going to be over there, we're converting the
Yes.
rooms, the size of them,
Yeah,
and
well, the
disabled.
size of the rooms will not change, but furniture and the facilities will be adapted to the high school. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And last question, if Siri will let me ask the question, if I can get back there. Do we need a doctor's note for the absences?
Right now, it's so difficult to get in to see doctors. We're trying to be as flexible as we can. What we'd like you to do is reach out to the office and just tell us, it's a lot easier to go word of mouth. If you disappear for 2 months and we don't see work out of you, we're going to need to talk. But as far as I just missed on a random Wednesday, do I need a doctor's note? No. We know how difficult it is to get into a doctor. So we can work with you on that.
And on the point of missing class, so we talked before at the first town hall of teachers recording their sessions and that they would be available later.
Yes.
I'm hearing reports, though, that some aren't doing that. Is this going to be pushed down to the teachers to make it more consistent, that they
Yes.
do the recording so it is available?
It's already, they should, all the teachers should have it. So it's out there, either recordings or the work in the syllabus and instructions, everything is ready for them to come back. So if you're not seeing it, again, then come back to Mr. Sirks and I so we can actually find out what's going on with that particular teacher.
One of the things that we're working on is to ensure that we've given them the technology. We're just working on the last bit of training for those that definitely need it, on how they can record their lesson without recording children. So instead of just recording what's actually on their screen, it's more recording what's coming out of their camera facing them. We always have a very, very, very small percentage of students. I mean, it's 1, 2, or 3, something like that, of parents that request that their children not, like they're hiding out essentially. There's a reason personally that they don't want someone else to know that they're around. And so we're very mindful, and we do our best to not just willy-nilly record kids and throw it out there for everyone to see. So that last little bit of training for showing teachers how to use the equipment they already have. Quite honestly, some of them, they got it working, and now they're scared to touch anything because they're afraid that if they do, it will stop working. So we're working on some videos and also some in-person training. We've hired internally some of our own staff to be trainer of trainers to be able to go out. They're also teachers. So they teach during the day. They need to go out in the evening and coordinate and do that. You'll only see that improve, but right now you should see everybody recording. So if you're not, let the principals know so that we can get that up and going, because that's our intent.
Thank you.
I wanted to say interject real quick because I got some direct text questions since special ed came up. Right now, we don't have clear guidance on coming back either. So it's not that we have clear guidance and we're working on building it out. We're just as with all instruction, we're still also waiting on clarity of guidance for a lot of that. So it isn't just us waiting and dragging our feet. A lot of it is still we're building out how do kids come into classrooms for instruction as well. That doesn't apply just to the general education, but also to special education.
I want to switch gears a little bit. Okay. Do we currently have an orientation program for incoming students?
We, under a traditional setting, I know, such as at Desert, they had things. There is no, unless gentlemen, you correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing that's formal under the distance learning platform at the moment. Am I incorrect on that, Dr. Elms, Mr. Sears?
Yeah, no, you're not incorrect.
Yeah.
The only thing I would suggest is that we do have a set of instructional videos on how to log into Google Classroom and do that, which we had at the beginning, so we make sure those are available for them.
We have that, but one of our things that we were working on prior to COVID-19 was how do we help a student that moves to Edwards feel like they're part of the community before they even get here? And the schools were making great strides in having friends for them and showing them around. So in those regards, we've been more focused on just how do we get instruction to them. But as far as how do you log on, there are videos on our website for doing things like that. We are small enough and agile enough that as a parent, again, if you have nothing else, you call my cell number and I'll get you to the right person. We can work with you. We're small enough to do that.
And I'll say for those coming to Edwards Air Force Base, this is a great time to give a plug to Candace Lang, who is our school liaison officer. She's currently in the room, so if you have questions for her, we can get those answered by her. But that is a resource that the base provides to our students incoming. So if you are one of these new incoming students, please reach out to her. Her webpage has been updated. I don't know the exact webpage ID, but we can put that out on Facebook. I'm sure it already is. But reach out to her, and she can help assist you to get the right contacts and get to the right people and help with some of this orientation.
And I'd also say the same thing when it comes for inbound PCSing folks that are coming in. You have a sponsor for a reason. Reach out to your sponsor, explain your need so that they can proactively get you the contacts that you need. Next question. And it's a little bit jumbled, so I'm going to try to put it here in an order. If I have a child that's on speech IEP, and we're coming back in the second phase, but I don't feel safe or I don't feel good about bringing them back, can we wait until it's safe to return?
You can. Our intent is we plan that forevermore there will be at least some people out there who probably will not be comfortable coming back to public education the way it was prior to COVID-19. So we can be flexible, and we will be as flexible as we possibly can. When it comes to IEPs, there are some specificities to those that we are required to provide a level of service Parents do have the right to deny those services, but we can usually get pretty creative with those and find ways to work with you, but we'll never mandate that thou shalt come and attend school in person. That's part of the reason that we purchased the equipment that we did. When we come back in a hybrid situation, we intend to set up cameras, much like we have here this afternoon, and again, record the teacher teaching the lessons for those that aren't present in class. And in my mind, I see for a very long time probably at least a few people who are just always going to be home. So we're ready for that.
Like the flexibility. Sir, that was it.
Okay.
As far as questions go.
Okay, so we'll turn it over for closing comments, and then I'll wrap it up, and we'll sign off from there.
Perfect. The only closing comment that I'd like to think, you guys have anything you want to say? They all want to keep their credentials. Very good. They're very smart. All right. This is where the chief gets nervous, so get ready, everybody. So, a
Question about you today.
there was a question asked earlier and a little bit of a comment about when it came to the hot spots and how we make too much money. Prior to COVID-19, we were advocating and working very, very hard on getting military-dependent children to be more recognized by the state legislature. And our foot has had to come off the gas pedal quite a bit on that, to be honest, just because of travel restrictions and just the times that we are living in. Mentally, it hasn't come off one bit. I am not disparaging the three groups of people that California prioritizes, but it is a fact that in education, when it comes to finances, California puts a higher value to and invests in students who are English learners, foster homeless youth, and those who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Earlier I stated that Edwards Air Force Base, those that attend schools here, account for approximately 75% of the school district. So approximately 75% of you, there are some of you that actually do fit into one of those three categories, but most of you don't. And so our district is very rare compared to neighboring school districts in that we do not qualify for the type of funding that other school districts do. We just do not. And a reason for that is our students don't tend to fall into those three categories of students. So one of the things that we were heavily advocating for and will continue to do so, both federally but mostly through the state, was for some sort of recognition for military-dependent children. As most people know, I am a child. I'm an adult who was a child who was a military dependent. I went to 3 different high schools, graduated from a Dodd school. I have 3 little sisters. We all did it. We all moved around all over the place, and there are just very unique needs that military children have that most people don't understand. They might kind of cognitively get the idea of it, but unless you've lived it, you don't feel it the same. And so, not to take away from the 3 groups of people that are being funded by any means, not wanting to take away from them, but wanting some sort of an additional recognition, especially financially, for military dependents, that has been a hallmark of our campaign since I have become superintendent especially. And we plan to continue that fight. We wish that we could give each and every one of you a hotspot. The reality is we don't receive funding equal to neighboring districts who, quite honestly, may be able to give you a hotspot. If they wanted to, they could, I suppose. We could all do anything, just depends on what we want to do with the money. We deficit spend as it is. Our program is crazy to keep Desert JRO program running. In fact, if it weren't for having a former instructor like it so much that he was willing to come back, we were going to lose that program. It's a really neat thing to be able to say that Desert High School is one of the pilot schools that actually has 8th graders in JROTC. We have one of the highest plurality rates of attendance when it comes to high schools in California that actually participate in JROTC. If you look at our high school students that actually participate, we're one of the highest in the state by far. Problem is, Desert High School is a tiny little high school compared to a big high school of 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 kids. And so if you were going to cut a program, Desert High School sounds like one that would be great to cut. We fight and fight and fight for the state legislature especially to recognize the needs of military families and those that support the military. So for those of you that wish that we could do more, we wish we could do more for you. For those of you that have expressed appreciation for what we do, thank you, because it means a lot to us. We really do fight hard for you. For those that live in Boron, we love you as well. We love the school district. This is a really neat place where we are spread out over 25 miles, but we are small, we're agile, and I just would like to publicly express appreciation for the support that we have, especially from the leadership at Edwards. We enjoy a great personal relationship. If you have a problem with a teacher or a program, reach out to us. If you want to vent about the school-age programs, we'd be a happening, listening ear, but I will always point you back to those that I know are worrying about it way more than I am. And I worry about it a lot, but it's not my program. So we'll send you in their direction. And if you'll do me a favor and you'll complain to me about me and complain to them about them, they will always say that we look pretty, and I'll promise you I'll always tell you how pretty they are. Because honestly, I think that you live in a great place, and you're surrounded by people that love you and support you, and we appreciate you. And I just want to publicly thank each and every one of you for all that you do, and we hope that you all stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to a day when life is back to the way that it used to be. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Kevin, and thanks, gentlemen, for showing up today. It is proof that we do have a great partnership here at Edwards, and so on behalf of General Heiger and the 412 Test Wing, I want to publicly thank you for the effort that you guys put in each and every day in taking care of our kids and making sure that we do the best that we can right now in this environment. This is uncharted territory for us all. So I just say, as Kevin said earlier, I think it was Dr. Elms, we're all in this together. So let's continue to work together to make this a better environment for our kids. I definitely want to give a shout again to our school liaison officer who set all this up, Candace Lang. Appreciate your help in getting this set up, in our PA shop, the guys in the back that are doing such a phenomenal job. We really appreciate that. And after that, we're going to sign off. Thank you.